vote for the CDU. I probably got that wrong as well. The leader said that his priority will be to strengthen Europe, and it could be achieved because it wants independence from the US because the US don't care. Yeah, I think we found that out over the last couple of days, didn't we?
Yeah.
We'll mention that in the next story.
And Simon, do you think this firewall will hold? Because I mean, in recent months, the AFD have actually, I think they helped get a bill through Parliament to restrict immigration in Germany. So it's not as if they're the firewall seems to be made out of ADF as well. And it seems to be burning in the heat.
It'll have to be found to be made of asbestos and have to be removed, and they'll be told, stay, you're not to cross while we replace this firewall. Several interesting things. I mean, big European elections are always vastly more complicated than we're used to with our first past the post, build a coalition, then go to the electorate kind of system. And I hope that people who are always campaigning for proportional representation see the sort of mess it can create. Certain things which I've been trying to follow it and get into the detail. One of the interesting things, there are two small parties, the FDP and the BSW. I've no idea what those stand for. If either of them break 5%, then they have to be included in the calculations, and that will create an almost impossible coalition challenge, so they'll be probably having a minority government. And that will obviously make it more possible for the AFD to create problems. And also, and I find this more interesting, but possibly because it plays to a very, very simple sort of cartoonish image of politics, it is extraordinary the degree to which the AFD vote is concentrated in the former Eastern Germany. It clusters around Berlin, which remains, left-wing and disco.
Yeah.
But the whole of the rest of what was formerly Prussia,
might be again
the source of the whole of German magnificence in the 19th century, spiky helmets and all the rest of it, they are so solidly... And the point of this is, so the AFD have won about 20% of the vote, which is roughly what they'd have been, the minimum they'd have been hoping for. It's not an unbelievable triumph, but it's a solid gain. But it is so heavily... If that was dispersed across the whole of Germany, you might conceivably say, listen, we have our cordon sanitaire, it's all very well you voting for them, but they're not going to get anywhere near power. But they're being so concentrated in a particular geographic region.
Yeah,
I think it's not a stable, it's not a sustainable situation to say that they're not involved in power in discussions about building policy.
Yeah, you sort it out with a wall. Would that in any way help?
Well, you've
come up with ideas.
They have a gate, I believe. Very popular rule.
And of course, I mean, their policy. I mean, I think in the UK they're mostly known for their sort of anti-immigration policy, and with the spate of Islamist stabbings that have hammered Europe, particularly Germany. That's been something that's pushing that lever. But they're also very Russian friendly, and maybe this is why they're so popular in the East. But it's also interesting that they're popular not just geographically focused in the East, but focused amongst the youth, particularly young men.
Yes.
Young men really, and we're seeing this across Europe. Young people who traditionally have been the leftiest of all are really turning to the right.
It's essentially anyone who's still got any testosterone. That gets drained away and replaced with various little blue pills.
There should be more athletes who are oddly voting right wing you than expect.
A shot putter called Svelga.
Even Arnie turned lefty, didn't he?
And Die Linke, or whatever they're called, which means is that the left? So they had a surprisingly good result. They're pushing.
the hard left. Well, there's been a
10%.
reaction as well against the AFD.
Yeah, but they're really, freakishly, outlandishly, cartoonishly left-wing. And, everybody always talks about, the threat from the hard right. Why is nobody talking about the threat from these freaks?
Well, in Germany, I suppose there are historical reasons for being anxious, but more broadly speaking, I think you're right.
Well, I'd have thought, given the history with the Berlin Wall and everything, you'd be more worried about the left. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Can we quickly mention as well, there is the story, Britain's held by Taliban for helping women over 30, teaching them how to be mothers. And it turns out, over there, they're not really into women learning stuff. And that's a shocker, isn't it? I mean, obviously, upsetting for these, but it reminded me of the story about women aren't even allowed to look through windows now. That when they banned windows near women, and if you've got a house that's got a window near a woman, the advice was build another wall. They don't have blind technology out there. They need another wall out there. So
it's not that they're not allowed to use Windows, as in the operating
or only Vista.
MS-DOS.
The torture of women over there is so much. They're only allowed Windows Vista.
You could make a fortune if you took curtains buttons to Afghanistan and said, "Why have you tried these? Look, when your wife's getting changed or washing some potatoes, you can just draw these." And
Wish them well, obviously.
We've got the Daily Telegraph as well, Simon, with Zelensky saying he could possibly quit his job.
Yes, the trouble with the Daily Telegraph when it arrives in this organisation is we get it on an A4 sheet, in which its type becomes so impossibly small. It's anything from the bottom line. I am kind of guessing about what it said. But I think it says Volodymyr Zelensky has said for the first time he is ready to give up the Ukrainian presidency if doing so were to deliver peace. And also he said he would give it up in exchange for NATO membership. Now, I don't think realistically NATO membership is on the cards. In fact, I don't think even many Brits, I don't think Keir Starmer would like NATO membership to become immediately because that would plunge us into war. We would be immediately responsible for their defence. And
it contravenes the rules of NATO. Like a country at war can't sign up. A country with other country soldiers inside its borders can't sign up.
Absolutely.
Like trying to get insurance after a crash. It's exactly the same.
But it is interesting. I have to say, and maybe this just demonstrates my feeble grasp of the situation, but the rhetoric is just sliding all over the place at the moment, isn't it? It's like trying to rig a sail in a gale, and it's almost impossible to understand what anyone might actually be hoping to achieve. Ignore what they're saying. They ignore the above-the-line, content of the rhetoric. It's also hard to understand what might be below the line. I think I had some time for the idea that Trump was essentially firing warning shots across Zelensky's bow that he would have to take the process that was coming in seriously.
Yeah.
So by sort of essentially excluding him from the negotiations, he forced him to say, no, I want to be a part of the negotiations, where if he'd said, would you like to come and have some negotiations, Zelensky would have said, no, I want to carry on with the war. Do you see what I mean? So there was that kind of calculation, but, very hard at this point to decide.
Well, yeah, I mean, Steve, I sort of optimistically hope that might be the reason Trump is saying it, but now I'm kind of thinking that Trump might just be really capricious and sort of running the world like a 14-year-old girl runs a high school.
Yeah. I think you should have lost that faith when, even before just after the phone call, but any talks happened, they were already giving ground, going, well, you can't expect to have all the territory back, and, we're not going to have American troops there. Surely they'd be things you'd been mentioning in the negotiation. I'm not an expert in negotiating peace deals, but it also looks like possibly they're not either. But it very much, I'm not surprised by this news story saying that he'd quit. I mean, he's a comedian. And we know what it's like.
He wants to get a slot on headliners, doesn't he?
Yeah. You're at a corporate gig, it's running late, and they say, do you mind only doing 5? Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Yeah,
I wouldn't be at all surprised if he has a world tour at the end of this. That would be amazing.
He has really sort of raised the bar for what comedians can achieve.
When my wife was looking at me in 2021, like, you see?
And now you're going, you see? Be careful what you wish for.
And also, I mean, if he does call Trump's bluff and step down and they hold elections, even though, I understand why Ukraine wants to avoid elections, because having that sort of strife and the sort of, they necessarily divide a country. But Zelensky would be overwhelmingly likely to take over from Zelensky, and Zelensky, who's the sort of envoy
Is it just purely on
UK.
Alphabetical order then?
They've got the A's and B's and C's went a long time ago.
Way back.
They were fighting the Mongols. But yeah, I mean, Zelensky's an incredible military leader, so he would probably play much harder ball with Russia and with Trump. And the idea that that Ukraine is a spent force and Russia could roll over it in a matter of days. I mean, Putin's been saying that since the war started. I think Russia is now a spent force. It's sending donkeys and North men to the front, which is never a sign of overwhelming success.
And there's some videos of like the Challenger 2 tanks that we sent over, absolutely taken out an entire column of Soviet era things. And the quote I heard was it reduces them to nuts and bolts. You think, all right, so we know who's got the bigger tank there, but if you have this peace deal and some time to restock and get some extra tanks in, that's the risk further along from the horizon, isn't it? And yes, it was true. Russia didn't win this in a couple of days. It looks like Trump might finish this in a couple of days by teaming up. Is it a peace talk if you've only got one side of the war there and someone who seems to hate the other side of the war, or is that ganging up?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see if Trump, I don't know, maybe he is playing 5D chess, because this has actually been very unpopular with him, with the American electorate.
Yes.
And so maybe, you know, he'll look at the polls.
No, absolutely. He look at the polls as well. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's created ripples all over the place. We were talking, I don't think it's on any of the news stories, of Paul Poilievre, who's virtually the president-elect of Canada, you know, Prime Minister-elect. He was 30 points ahead, and it's all evaporated just because of how unpopular Trump has made the right-wing politics.
Yeah.
It's high stakes.
It's incredible. We've got the eye, Steve, with Labour trying to build homes.
Yeah, Labour's plan for 1.5 million new homes under threat from skills shortage. Bob the Builder was asking the right questions. it turns out we can't build it because no one knows how to build this stuff. The workforce is ageing out. There was that weird period where all the builders were from one particular country and they've gone home because their economy's doing better than ours now. So, no, you can have the plan to build stuff, but if no one knows how to do it, it's not going to happen.
But I've been inside some new homes in the UK, and I've got to say, the people who built those homes don't know how to build either. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe we could solve this problem by just not importing 1.2 million people every year who presumably don't bring a semi-detached house with them.
Well, this has been the accusation levelled at Angela Rayner from the very first moment that she announced this project, which is that so you're going to have to import builders to do this. Where are they going to live? They're going to live in the houses they build. It is a Ponzi scheme, and I mean, it's interesting to see it on the front page of the Eye because I've seen this headline and this story repeated without any. This doesn't seem to have moved it on at all ever since she first announced it. There is a massive skill shortage. Now, arguably, this is worth announcing regularly so that young men and indeed women, conceivably, and people of no fixed gender can identify a potentially profitable line of work to go into. You know? I mean, I think it would be great if we built up the artisan trades and maybe some corny specialists.
Maybe we should make it illegal to do gender studies. Like if you when you walk through the door for gender studies, you actually walk into a bricklaying course, and that could solve our problems. Do something useful.
Wonderful. You know, like a liberal arts degree, but for building. You know, just like all the skills. Yeah, go for it.
OK, well, moving on, let's have a look at some more front pages with the Daily Mail. Was licence fee payers' cash given to Hamas? Well, they already got council houses in London. Why not give them BBC money too? The Sun has fat jabs linked to 82 deaths. And the Daily Star has bots batter boffins. So, yeah, Simon, the Daily Mail with the licence fee money going to Hamas.
Yes, well, I mean, the way they present that title, it's almost as if they deliberately, sidelined it and just, channelled it straight into the fighting fund. The point is that they made a documentary. Anything the BBC does is, of course, using licence fee because that's all the money they've got, and so that is a given. The BBC made an Hamas documentary, and it seems as if they may well have ended up parroting Hamas talking points, or however you want to put it. There has been considerable concern that the BBC seem to have been quite gullible on a number of occasions, accepting Hamas and Gazan propaganda and figures and so on without proper scrutiny, or whether something was deliberately targeted because it was a hospital and so on. And this seems to be an ongoing part of that. But Kemi Badenoch has decided to really go in hard on them. Apparently it's a quite eye-watering attack and potential collusion with Hamas. Which, I mean, the point is, of course, the Daily Mail has had it in for the BBC for a very long time, before GBNews even existed. But we are seeing now the point at which it is increasingly difficult to justify the BBC's funding model, especially if they are inclined to make controversial programming like this rather than Last of the Summer Wine,
Yeah, as well as the controversial programming, they're also doing a controversial campaign at the moment to shake down people for money. Because apparently 500,000 people slashed their, didn't stop paying their licence fee. So they've sent letters out to everyone who isn't paying. I got one, and it basically says we can kick in your door anytime, day or night, and we can, rip the rings off your fingers. It's like they're like a cheap debt.
I always hear this. So there was a time when I moved out of the flat in with the missus. I had a house with no TV in it. So I got the letter saying, you've not paid your TV licence. And I just tick the box saying, I don't watch TV there. Done. I don't know what everyone online seems to make it seem. Or maybe I just didn't read the threatening bit lower down. It's I know I tick the box.
That's complying with their Soviet bureaucracy.
What, are you saying people shouldn't comply with this legal requirement to have a licence to watch TV?
I'm saying if the law is wrong, then you shouldn't comply with it.
Oh.
I mean, you have to
no
say...
one telling you here to say different? No? All right.
There is that funding model, and then there is the attempt every single time GBNews secure a new advertiser to delegitimise their right to advertise on the channel, as if they may as well be bayoneting babies and chucking them onto building roofs. You know? I mean, you cannot help but notice there is a little bit of a gap in the approach there. So it does rankle. Yeah,
absolutely. And here on The Sun, Steve, we've got fat jabs linked to 82 deaths. Fat jabs was one of Gaz's mates.
Probably was, yeah. So I've been trying to read the actual story on the website, because the front page simply says that they're linked to it. It says these people died after taking the drug. So the thousands of people, including not just the modern trend of using it for weight loss, the 10 years of study of people with diabetes taking this as a diabetic treatment, of course you're going to have people who die. Like, there'd be 82 people who die. We're talking not necessarily the healthiest cohort.
Doesn't it provide immortality as well?
Well, no, it doesn't provide immortality. So that's where they've got you. Yeah, if you fell for that.
Right.
But so these drugs, I can't see what the link is yet. We definitely know that some people took the drugs and then some people died afterwards, which would have happened anyway. People say you should have salad instead. I've looked into it, and people who ate salad, they all end up dying at some stage. What we might be confusing here is correlation and causation, but it's a drug. There will be side effects at some point. If enough people take it, some people will die of the side effects. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
And also, some people are getting it from drug dealers, and some people are doubling up because, you know, the prescription drugs are more easily available. You just fill in a form online. So I know people who are doubling up with the doses, and also they're not changing their lifestyle, so they're still just living the lifestyle that made them fat in the first place.
Well, the Ozempic, but the point of Ozempic is it's supposed to stop you wanting to do that, isn't it?
So, so you eat less. But if you're still just eating, you know, Danish pastries and stuff like that, then you're not getting any healthier. In fact, you're probably getting fewer nutrients.
All of that's not the drug's fault, is it? No. It's the people's fault. If you're getting drugs online illegally and you die, that's kind of on you, isn't it?
No, the drug should like put some sort of like nanobot in your arm that like goes to your brain and tells you to stop being a fat idiot who sits on the couch. Like that's what it needs. Like you need the stop sitting on the couch bit. I mean, apart from people watching this.
Tabloid newspapers absolutely revel in wonder drugs, and then they just play on that seesaw for as long as they possibly can and sell papers. I think, on balance, it's probably a good thing. Post hoc ergo propter hoc and all that. But, yeah, I think I was
treated by one of those.
I would say so, yeah.
Well, that's the front pages for you. In the next section, Labour decide to buy British. Is the Stonewall going to fall over now that Trump slashed their funding? And France learns that deporting terrorists before the 11th attempt might be a good idea. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
TikTok chefs, Instagram chefs, that they put children off or young people off of cooking because it's so expertly done that they can't do it. No, my young lad, he's 17, he is amazing in the kitchen.
Is he?
Oh, he is. He's amazing in the kitchen. And he gets it all off TikTok. He comes down, he can put burgers, wraps, stews, curries, sauces, and the smells in the kitchen. I said, where'd you get these? Oh, just TikTok, I'm trying it out. And it's just amazing the things that he can conjure up. So for some people, it might be... it's an inspiration for him. So they're saying that it's intimidation. For my boy, it's an inspiration. They say it's entertainment. For my boy, it's an infomercial. I watch him doing his stuff. At that stage, I could do baked beans on toast and knock up a salad. That was it. But my boy can do all sorts of stuff.
It makes it accessible as well, doesn't it? Because lots of people say, like, you need an education to be in the kitchen, or you need to go find yourself loads of cookbooks. But you don't.
No.
You go on your phone now.
Well, I mean, like, all the spices, sesame oil. I mean, I'm amazed at the stuff that he does. So it's encouraging. All you just need is a kitchen well-stocked and have a go. And understand that failure is actually the route to learning. I mean, he's made mistakes, he's stuck stuff in the bin, but that young man, I am amazed at some of the stuff he does.
I don't mind cooking at all. It's cleaning up that I have the problem with. Dawn, let's talk about sex.
Can I just say there are things called restaurants, by the way? Just put that one. Oh, my hell, I don't even know where the kitchen is.
OK.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's go to gbnews.com/Yorsey for some of your comments. We've got one here from Butme Bumsmills, who says, interesting name, might be Gambian, who says Simon Evans and Stephen Allen must be looking on enviously at Leo Kearse now he's got a non-bald spot. So, yeah, maybe. And Jesse Jones says, just saying hiya to the Headliners. Hiya, Jesse. Thanks for watching.
Great content.
And funnily enough, me and Lewis Schaefer, who's another headliner, we're doing a show in Banbury on the 27th. That's this Thursday. So if you want to see us in real life, come along to Banbury. There's tickets on my Twitter, on Google, wherever you want to look. Anyway, let's get back into the show. We've got the Telegraph now, and the French knife attacker faced deportation 10 times, and each time the asylum system waved the white flag. That's so French, Steve.
It's weird, isn't it? So, Islamist terrorist accused of knife murder in France avoided deportation 10 times, is your story. French ministers accuse Algeria of glaring imbalance of refusing to take the suspect back. It must be so annoying that you're a nation and someone leaves you and they had no real right to do so and they should be deported back and you won't accept them back. Oh, France, that must be so annoying. What could that possibly be like? But this man, so he stabbed a man to death, he was in prison, he was considered medically unsafe, he's a wrong 'un. He shouted Allahu Akbar multiple times during the attack. To be fair, you would, wouldn't you? Like, if I were attacking someone, you'd throw one in just for, you know, just to mess with the newspapers.
It does feel good to shout.
It's on a crowded tube. Have you tried that one? That's my favourite. The Algerian consulate having none of it, going no thanks. And after a week of the Telegraph specials, it feels odd that that's where the story stops. Like they wanted to deport him and they were just ignored instead of like because of chicken nuggets or because, you know, he wore the wrong kind of wig or whatever the story will be. That's it. No, they just said no and should have been deported earlier.
And we've seen this before, Simon, with, you know, when the UK tries to deport people back to Pakistan.
I mean, I lose my sense of time going to stories like this.
I don't know why we can't just turn around to the countries that are refusing to take the deportees, whatever they're called, and just say, OK, you're not going to take them? Well, no more visas issued ever.
Absolutely,
and no more aid from us. And in fact, those are things we should be saying anyway.
We should be saying those things, and we should be able to take significant physical measures to eliminate them from providing further threat.
Yep.
I mean that quite seriously. I think they should be able to, if not lock them up, or you know, well, I have certain ideas about emasculation that would be quite effective as well. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, Macron is not denying this, and this chap, Monsieur Retello, the Interior Minister, he says it's a result of migratory disorders, which sounds more like something that would happen to the African swallow if it, you know, if it lost track of.
Oh, I'm in Iceland.
Yeah. Oh, it's just sick. I mean, we laugh about it, but it is just it's just so relentless, isn't it? And of course, this is, you know, why you have the AfD and why you have Le Pen and why there is just like such growing exasperation and impatience
Yeah.
Frustration across the whole of mainland Europe now because stories like this just come on in a constant stream. You know,
yeah, and I think regular people can see something that perhaps our sort of indoctrinated leaders cannot.
Yeah.
They can see that it's idiotic.
I like the idea that every time there's a story about some failed deportation case, like you wake up in bed like Bill Murray listening to Sonny and Cher, I Got You, Babe. Oh, what day is this? Still in the loop.
Yeah.
OK, well, moving on, we've got the Daily Mail now, and Labour wants more British food in prisons, which is great because under their speech crime laws, that's where half of us are going to end up.
Yes, you like hospital food. I think this is quite interesting. The Mail are positioning this. I don't know whether it can be honestly said, to be consciously so, that they are to order, Labour to order schools, hospitals and prisons to buy more British food in a bid to appease farmers who are furious at Rachel Reeves' tax raid. Now, of course, we know, we've covered this in some detail, the family farm tax, which it is highly disputed how many farmers it will affect, but they are likely those who can, who find themselves within that bracket, inherit property worth more than $1 million, and they will have to pay a 20% rate of inheritance tax on it, which will often mean that they have to sell it. And so, in exchange for that, they get to supply bangers to HMP. And I don't know whether that will be regarded as a significant enough sop, to be honest. But on the other hand, to be fair, the charity or the pressure group who represent them, No Farming, No Food campaign, said the changes were a step in the right direction. So maybe they are. I happen to know, I've mentioned it before, my wife does PR for Morrison's, and they've been very keen on this stuff, trying to get British farmers to supply institutional catering operations. And, it's obviously a very major outlet, especially the prisons, will probably take the wonky carrots, will be coming up a bit later. So,
They're not going to be fussy. But there's no sign of the government, even though this is a really, unpopular move. There's no sign of the government rolling it back. It seems to be an ideological part of a left-wing government to always mess with farms.
Yeah, but also I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about this, saying it's part of the core numbers of the budget. So if you mess with this, you're undoing the budget, and that's step one of lose your chancellor, lose then there's another election. Yeah. So it's not. You can tinker with some of the things on the side of it without it being like, yeah, we're ripping up. Look what happened with Liz Truss. It was the get rid of that budget, get Jeremy Hunt in to totally redo it, and then of course you're out of work fairly shortly. I will say on this though, if you want to have a conspiracy theorist, what you do is you point out that by getting all of the farms to serve all of these places within the UK, they make more money, so they become worth more. So more farms will be over $1 million, so then inheritance tax gets thrown on them. Done it.
Lured into the trap.
That is superb work, Steve. Well, moving on, we've got the Daily Mail again, and the SAS say they won't go to Ukraine unless they're protected from prosecution for actions on the battlefield. And given that we've seen ex-soldiers prosecuted for criticising the government, they should extend that exemption to when they get home, Steve. Yeah, SAS soldiers threaten strike action if deployed to Ukraine. This follows... I mean, that's a picket line no one's going to cross, isn't it? This is the coroner's... Not doing that twice. Coroner's ruling that special forces were not justified in using lethal force against 4 IRA members in '92. That's what sets the precedent for this. And so they want protection. The same protection, it turns out, the MI6 agents get, your licence to kill. And what do you think you're sending the SAS in for? It's not tickling, is it? So, but I will say it's also true to say that we are way too early to be having this discussion. No one's talking about who's going to be sent in doing the peacekeeping. There's no peace been established to be kept yet. So they are kind of hitching this story to the one that's Ukraine and therefore in the news. And fair play, I'm not going to argue with them. They are bigger than me. But I mean, I guess it's the fact that, the precedent has been set that, SAS or other armed forces don't have immunity and can be prosecuted for actions taken in Afghanistan, in Iraq or wherever, which, I mean, it's a terrible precedent to set. And it says here, morale is through the floor, blokes are leaving, the regiment is suffering. I mean, this is not what we want to hear, right, when, we could be heading into an armed conflict.
Well, absolutely. We've always taken an enormous amount of pride in the SAS. Politicians occasionally may overstep the mark. Michael Portillo, of course, famously got a bit too excited about the SAS.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they are a source of great pride. And as our army shrinks, its capabilities and its sheer number of troops shrink, we lean more and more heavily on the notion that the elite troops are still the best in the world. And there is still some force to that argument, but we have to maintain that credibility because as I say, in so many other metrics, our capabilities are not what they once were. And I think it would be a very great shame if we lost the ability to recruit the best of the best at this point.
Absolutely. Or maybe they could just stage a military coup. Maybe that would sort everything out. Anyway, loads more great stories to come. Elon Musk asks bureaucrats to prove they actually work. Someone gets fired for voting reform, and the Met Police hires 1,000 officers with the same level of background checks as an Uber Eats driver. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Jonathan, in London, we're hearing that there could be more posties from an Amazon point of view in order to limit or cut carbon emissions, but that they could put more people on foot delivering their parcels.
This is really interesting because more and more people now obviously are using Amazon and buying their shopping online or buying gifts online. And it's interesting that in London they're talking about putting their Amazon workers on foot. There are now parts of the country, I think Milton Keynes is one part of the country, where there's robots delivering parcels, or you'll see these. Well, they call them robots. You'll see these little things sort of bundling down the street.
Yes.
Sort of
robots.
Yeah, I mean, technically they are a robot, but when I think of a robot, I think of a sort of
a humanoid robot.
Yeah, sort of humanoid thing, sort of Lost in Space style robot. But actually, they're sort of little sort of carriages, little
droids,
boxes,
like Star Wars droid type.
Well, they're not
thing.
even that. They're like a little sort of, they're like a box on wheels, delivering parcels in places like Milton Keynes and other bits of the country. So I think this is just another example of how the world is changing. Online shopping is completely changing the way in which we all live our lives, the way things.
But I think Milton Keynes lends itself to something like that. This is a newly designed town.
Yeah. Exactly, that's why they're in Milton Keynes.
And I really do think that a town like that really does lend itself towards a piece of tech like that. When I think back, our postie in Gloucestershire is a guy called Dave. He's fantastic. Everyone knows who he is. But I'm not sure that he could be replaced by one of these little droid things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and let's go to gbnews.com/yoursay to see what you've been saying. Andy Davies says, it's nice to see some intelligent faces on Headliners tonight. Oh, that's nice, Andy. Oh, wait, there's more. And Leo is on as well. OK, well, everyone's a critic. We've got more Daily Mail now, with Trump freezing foreign aid, and suddenly Stonewall, because of this freeze, might have to cut half of its staff. Why on earth was overseas aid paying for child gender propaganda in Britain, Simon?
It's a good question, Leo. Just before I get into that, I think the intelligent faces are the ones with the high brows. Put yourself in there, I'm afraid. Yes, Trump aid freeze may force Stonewall to cut up to half of its staff. That's in the Times. Stonewall, of course, as I'm sure our viewers are aware, a long-standing charity initially dedicated to lesbian and gay rights, and then bisexual rights, LGB, and in more recent years overwhelmed by a focus on the T. much to the disgust, in fact, of many of its original former members.
Yeah.
It's the one that's been drawing up various criteria by which companies could be judged as to whether or not their diversity hires were adequate. They would then earn points from Stonewall. Horrifically corrupt sort of...
it's been compared to a sort of mafia shakedown where you pay,
absolutely.
$5,000 or whatever. A company pays $5,000 to Stonewall and then gets this plaque on the wall that says, it won't get burnt to the ground on Twitter.
That's right. They attend some classes and they go on some courses and then they get a little badge. It's like being a member of the Tufty Club or something. But anyway, what I find quite interesting about this is the numbers. I'm only just doing a bit of rough, calculations on the back of the proverbial, but it seems that they've said that they've had an announcement via a Teams call, so I feel sorry for anyone whose computer crashed halfway through that. My experience of Teams calls on parents' evenings has not been positive. 114 staff, and it said they may lose half of them, and they're shell-shocked. And then you get down to the actual funding, which has come through something called the GEF, the Global Equity Fund, which in due course was being funded by USAID and so on. And it seems they're handing over something in the region of 150,000 a year. So I don't know quite how minimal their wages are, but that doesn't sound like 60... That wouldn't fund 60 people on a decent living.
Yeah.
So either they are trying to present Trump as the architect of their demise, or they were already on very shaky ground and they're trying to use this as an excuse, which is not unheard of course. People do that sort of thing all the time.
Well, yeah, and a lot of public bodies have been pulling back. In the UK, have been pulling back from Stonewall, and its accreditation scheme has been very controversial for a while. But it's... I think a lot of this stuff, Stonewall, it shows that, foreign aid and charities, it sounds good. It's just nice and helping people. Yeah. But actually it can be, pushing quite controversial ideologies that can be harmful to children and restricting freedom of speech and attacking people. So it's not always a good thing. Maybe Trump's right to slash it all.
Well, to the point about the using this as an excuse to make cuts anyway, we actually had a story on one episode of Headliners on a month ago or so that was about how they're not getting as many contracts. Go in the banks and those ones. So it will be part of that. I don't know, it's just one of these things where two things can be true at the same time. You can find a list of things that are being funded, as Elon Musk did, and said, look, it's ridiculous. It's basketball lessons in some place and it's lesbians somewhere else. Yeah, they shouldn't be on there as well. The same funding was also Alzheimer's research and paying in part for the prison guards in the prison that people in Syria are in. I wouldn't stop paying them straight away. It's entirely possible to try and get rid of the wrong ones without getting rid of them all. I think there's a thing about babies in a bath with water. If there was some way of putting that in a sentence.
It's interesting you say that, but Sam Tate, who I quote on here more than any other registered journalist, Telegraph correspondent, he characterised the Musk attitude, much as he had done at X, formerly Twitter. Break everything in sequence and then remove everything in sequence and then restore the thing that you removed last when it finally stops working.
That's great for sorting out fuses.
That's a good way of doing it. Now, of course, there's an argument that when you remove all the different charities at the same time, that won't work because your system will work.
Also, the starving kids in Malawi can't be brought back to life, I guess, would be the argument.
But I would also just add, there's a chap called Victor Davis Hanson who's well worth watching, who's a military and classical historian, but he's pro-Trump and he's very articulate. And he said, I think with some force, that they're calling this the Trump revolution. It's a restoration. Yeah. There has been a revolution. The Obama years, the 8 years of Obama, and then the aftershock of Biden, 12 years. Yeah. Shifted everything so dramatically to the left. So much was funded that would not normally have been funded that Trump is really just resetting the balance.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely agree. And I disagree with Stephen that we should stop funding the lesbians. I'm a fan of work. We've got the Metro now, and Elon Musk wants proof government workers did something useful. Good luck with finding that, Elon. Simon, tell us more.
Yes, he wants... we've heard about this again. This has come out several times. Musk has got a basic thing, like he went into Twitter again with this form and says, what have you done today? What have you contributed? What have you got done? What is your job? What do you do? And if you don't have a plausible, reasonably articulate response to that, you're out. Now, he is saying failure to respond will be taken as resignation from any government worker that doesn't tell him what they did last week. Failure to respond would, I think, in this situation, probably warrant resignation, because you're basically being asked, if you can't come up with something...
or do you exist? Yes, exactly. Where is this money going? going.
You know, you might resent it a little bit. Now, the question is, can you justify in absolutely hard-nosed terms? Or do you say, well, I facilitated the smooth running of a number of programmes, of which I'm a large team that's committed to bringing about these... You know, it might be difficult to say on an exactly hour-by-hour, day-by-day basis. Yeah. But at this point, it's not saying everyone's going to be sacked unless they can point to, you know, a significant achievement in that 24-hour period.
Yeah, but Steve, I mean, he's asking federal workers, he's asking public sector workers to provide 5 bullet points summing up their achievements over the last 7 days. I mean, that's a month's work.
Do you know what? The thing about this, part of it annoys me because it's performative, because he did this on X.
Yeah.
If you're in charge of the people, just message the people you're in charge of. You don't have to do it yourself, you know, to be, oh, look how I'm doing it. But if you can't come up with 5 lies, then you deserve to lose your job. I could fill this in. Tomorrow we've all got some training, haven't we, that we've got to do here. Oh, if they ask me what I've been doing, I'm going to make it seem like I'm really involved. So, yeah, if you...
Scrutinising, assessing, disputing,
bullet points, isn't it? Yeah. Chat GPT can come up with 5 bullet points for you of lies about my job.
Every time he gets back an answer that goes, hey, what a good question, he'll know it's come from...
We've got the Express now with someone sacked for voting reform or standing for reform because democracy is only for people with the right opinions, Steve.
I was sacked from my 37k job for backing Reform UK. It's earth-shattering, which they've spelt with a lowercase e, which just means it messes up your garden.
It's somebody with a pickaxe.
Yeah, they just turn over the soil. But this guy said he was sacked after telling his employer that he was standing for, which I think is different. It's not just saying, I support this party, it's, I'm going to stand in a local election. And, whatever you say is going to be right, but let me say out the stall. Let me say out the stall, make some progress. It's thoroughly wrong for you to lose a job because of your political opinion.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And everything I say here will disagree with that, because he was so naive. He was more naive than his kid that was about to be born. That he was on a probationary period. We all know that's when you just keep your head down and don't say anything. Don't say, oh, I'm standing to be a local MP and might be doing some of you spending time on that. No.
Don't throw your heart out to anyone in the...
Yeah, definitely. Don't say that you back reform when you work for a housing association. Have you met a housing association? They are the theoretical opposite of reform. And he had a baby on the way, so all of this makes me... I don't want to victim blame, but I guess I'm a bit saying, like... Oh, I read all this with my head in my hands, go, what are you doing, you fool? Just make up 5 lies about your job like I did for the last story.
But I do think, I mean, if he'd been standing for the Green Party or Labour, then he obviously wouldn't have faced any
Not
issue.
From a housing association, no. If he'd gone for a job in a decent boozer and he'd mentioned he was standing, I think he might have been out. I mean, I think Steve is right here. It is quite the specifics, you know, the devil is in the detail. Hightown Housing Association is specifically a housing association that houses migrants and refugees. And he's basically said, by the way, I'm standing for a party that will have all these organisations closed down on day one.
You're going to have a lot of spare capacity. This is...
I feel sorry for him as well, and I hope he finds some sort of recourse to it, you know. And nobody should feel ashamed or guilty for their political opinions in any line of work.
Yeah.
But as you say, it is sometimes best to kind of just tread softly in the early days.
For a couple of weeks.
In the probation area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, as I understand, he's challenging this. So there's a fund you can actually donate to pay for his lawyers and stuff. I think it's been done through the Free Speech Union. So, he's a great guy. Sabat, I've spoken to him, and I really hope it works out for him and his family as well. Well, that's that section done. We've got the final section to go with students needing warnings for Renaissance paintings, hot people terrified of ugly vegetables, and young men are losing their hair, their confidence, and apparently their ability to get it up. This is Headliners, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. It still remains cold in Greece and Turkey with the risk of showers stretching westwards as well, but dry across western parts of the Mediterranean. Canary Islands, 17, 18 degrees. Madeira as well, seeing some bright or sunny spells. Dry across central southern parts of Spain and Portugal. Rain across the north, and then showers for Italy across into Greece, where it will also feel quite hot, cold. Temperatures 8, 9, 10 Celsius. Turkey as well on the cold side. Just slowly start to warm up through the latter part of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's been an unsettled end to the weekend. We have Met Office warnings in force before sunshine and showers return on Monday. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have a deep area of low pressure out towards the northwest, a real squeeze in the isobars indicating strong winds with this cold front sinking south and eastwards. So there is a Met Office amber rain warning in force for southern parts of Wales, so do take care. Could be disruption on the roads, but also some flooding. And this band of rain will continue to move its way south and eastwards through the night. Clearer spells behind that across Northern Ireland and Scotland. Chillier here, but it's going to be a damp but mild start across southern parts of England and parts of Wales as we start Monday morning. So a damp start across the southern parts of England, but mild. Temperatures here already at around 10 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, sunnier spells coming through and across northern parts of England and into Scotland, but we'll start to see the return of some showers, and some of the showers still could be on the heavy side. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then that rain clears across southeastern areas, so turning drier for a time with some sunny spells developing, but we'll also see some showers start to bubble up, and some of these could be on the heavy side. Most frequent and heaviest are going to be across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, but for most we should see some sunny spells, just feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine, highs of 13 or 14 degrees. So to start Tuesday morning, we have a band of rain across the southeastern areas once again. Behind that, we should see some sunny spells, but we'll also see frequent scattered showers developing more widely across many areas on Tuesday. Similar picture on Wednesday, perhaps with some longer spells of rain, but temperatures will return to average with some colder nights to come. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, kicking off this section with The Telegraph now, and a feminist is telling teens to keep their pants on. It feels like feminism has come full circle to be the patriarchy, Simon.
Yes, indeed. Louise Perry is my kind of patriarch, I have to say. No, she's wonderful. I'm very, very much a big fan of Louise. I've watched several of her YouTube debates and so on. I haven't gone so far as to read a book, you know, but she has rewritten her book, essentially, for kids. The original book was called The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, in which she details the bad things that the sexual revolution has brought about. She's pleased, of course, that she's able to earn a living and so on, and go into pubs without a male companion. But broadly speaking, she thinks that women. Her key argument is that women continue to underestimate just how important the decisions you make about your sex life are, who you have sex with, how often you have sex with different men, and whether or not you feel that society is trying to convince you that you can play the field just as casually as men do, with as few scars and as few aftershocks. And she doesn't feel you can. And in her new book...
Who dumped her?
Well, it's good. She has a good relationship, I think, by all accounts. A very attractive woman, actually. But she's... although she tells her husband he's not allowed to watch porn, which is interesting. Anyway, she has written a new guide to sex in the 21st century, which is the young adult adaptation. Apparently this is rising. So
this is with Buck Rogers.
We're essentially, yes.
And a robot watching.
I think the point of putting it in in the programme is so that viewers out there who have adolescent girls or even a little bit younger and feel that they might be about to come under the auspices of whatever is the female version of Andrew Tate, you know, who's going to encourage them to set up an OnlyFans account and achieve economic insecurity.
Which probably would be Andrew Tate.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So I think it's probably worth a watch. She's very good. She's very good. Yeah, check her out on the tube. She's probably been on this channel, I would imagine.
Yeah. Just the headline, though, is no sex until you're engaged, and it would statistically ruin my body count, because I've only been engaged twice, so it would have halved the number of people I've slept with, which would be devastating to my rep.
OK, well, let's see if we can fit in some more stories. We've got the Telegraph now, and it turns out the left's strategy of telling young white men that they're awful hasn't won them over, Steve.
Yeah, white privilege claims driving young men to Andrew Tate, says Sam Fender. And it says here, singer of 17 Going Under, Sam Fender, says that lads who are made to feel that they're the problem are then able to be seduced by misogyny. And this is exactly what I've been saying for years on this show.
But
and he sings one song. He sings one. Not only does he sing one song, he sings.
You've got the jawline. You haven't got the
I can see. I hide it under
got the tenor.
But when I say he sings one song later in the story, they say the 30-year-old singer of 17 Going Under. Literally, they only mention one song in the entire piece. Clearly, his back catalogue is not huge. But no, I totally agree with it. White working-class people told, like, no, come on, you've got all this privilege. And it's a misunderstanding that you could be in a better situation, but you can still have other, things going wrong with you. And, I think I'm all for backing up the working class. Look, I managed to drag myself out of it, and it's not helped me. I'm on my way back slowly.
There's going to be people watching saying you haven't quite dragged yourself out of it.
That's true. How dare they? I've been oppressed.
Yeah, my kids love Sam Fender. My son, who's a big classic rock enthusiast, regards Sam as one of the carriers of the true light. So I think this is going to cut through. I hope so, yeah.
Brilliant.
He's a Geordie lad, he's got some credibility.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. It's what we've all been saying, White privilege is such an absurd oversimplification of the... In a way, I'm more in favour of intersectionality than that, which does at least recognise it's a three-dimensional matrix that we're living in.
So, mainstream voices are coming to sense. Well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Times has hard right on course for big gains in Germany. That could never go wrong. The Telegraph has Zelensky, I will quit if it brings peace. The Eye has Labour's plan for 1.5 million new homes under threat from skills shortage. The Daily Mail has, was licence fee payers' cash given to Hamas? The Sun has fat jabs linked to 82 deaths. And the Daily Star has bots batter boffs. I have no idea what that one is. And that's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests, Steve and Simon. Josh Howie will be here tomorrow night at 11 p.m. with Simon and Lewis Schaefer. If you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, then stay tuned for breakfast, and I'll see you hopefully in Banbury and hopefully on Friday. Goodbye. Cheerio.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's been an unsettled end to the weekend. We have Met Office warnings in force before sunshine and showers return on Monday. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have a deep area of low pressure out towards the northwest, a real squeeze in the isobars indicating strong winds with this cold front sinking south and eastwards. So there is a Met Office amber rain warning in force for southern parts of Wales, so do take care. Could be disruption on the roads, but also some flooding. And this band of rain will continue to move its way south and eastwards through the night. Clearer spells behind that across Northern Ireland and Scotland. Chillier here, but it's going to be a damp but mild start across southern parts of England and parts of Wales as we start Monday morning. So a damp start across the southern parts of England, but mild. Temperatures here already at around 10 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, sunnier spells coming through, and across northern parts of England and into Scotland. But we'll start to see the return of some showers, and some of the showers still could be on the heavy side. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then that rain clears across southeastern areas, so turning drier for a time with some sunny spells developing, but we'll also see some showers start to bubble up, and some of these could be on the heavy side. Most frequent and heaviest are going to be across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, but for most we should see some sunny spells, just feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine, highs of 13 or 14 degrees. So to start Tuesday morning, we have a band of rain across the southeastern areas once again. Behind that, we should see some sunny spells, but we'll also see frequent scattered showers developing more widely across many areas on Tuesday. Similar picture on Wednesday, perhaps with some longer spells of rain, but temperatures will return to average with some colder nights to come. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?